Hello, good evening. Hello, this is our weekly book discussion, 52 book challenge. And today we are going to go over the book titled Traction by Gino Wickman. This is a very interesting book. I had it in my library, and this is my second time around reading it. And it's very interesting. I had a big coincidence happen. I think it's a coincidence. I had this book on the list to read, right? Many months ago, weeks or months ago. And it just so happened I was in a 2-day conference this weekend that passed. And in that conference, they actually went over some of the material from this book. And I was like, wow, I can't believe it. I'm going over this book this week, which I scheduled a long time ago, and it happens to be this happens to be a topic of discussion in this conference. So it was interesting. Just leave it at that. This book is something that it's a book that I've heard a lot, and that's why we added it to the book challenge to read. And it's very interesting book. It's about business, and it's very I think you can say strategic. And I think that if you are in business or considering starting a business, this going over this book can help you save a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of headaches in your business. Because what tends to happen is that when people go into business, typically, the majority of times, what tends to happen is that, and myself included, at the beginning, you have this technical mindset. You know what you want. You know what the technical aspect of the business that you're doing or that you want to do, but you don't necessarily know how to run a business. And what happens is that people get into business thinking that just because they know how to do something, that they can just open a business and be successful. For example, I don't know, you can an example like a bakery, right? Somebody knows how to bake cake or a good cook. Somebody's a good cook, a good chef, and they think they can open a restaurant. So two different things. Having a business, a restaurant, and being a chef is two different things, two different skill sets, right? The cooking is one skill set, and running a business is another skill set. So if you're going into business or you're already in business, make sure that you separate the skill set, the technical aspect versus the running the business aspect. There's certain things that you should know and should learn about in terms of running a business. Otherwise, you're going to learn from a lot of mistakes. You're going to waste a lot of time. You're going to waste a lot of money. So it's very important that, the material is out there. There's a lot of people, a lot of books that are out there. This book, highly recommend that you take a look at it. This one and another one that I'm not sure if it's on our list called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. Actually, he mentions it in this book. So they complement each other. So this book is about, he coins a key term called Entrepreneurial Operating System, or EOS for short. And it's really about a set of simple tools and principles to run your business. And he separates them in 6 key components. So the first chapter of the book is I think one of the most important chapters, because he summarized it. He summarized what he's going to tell you in the next couple of chapters. So each component is the chapter, and then at the beginning he talks about high level all the chapters. And I think that the first time that I read this book, I glanced over the first chapter, then I went into each chapter, and now that I'm reading it again, I see chapter 1 was very critical to pay attention to, because it helps you understand what's coming next. So the EOS, as he calls it, Entrepreneurial Operating System. If you think about what an operating system is, it's like, if you're into, computers have an operating system. It's not like running Windows or Apple, iOS. Those are the operating system, right? So he calls it Entrepreneurial Operating System, and basically a set of tools, processes, principles that an entrepreneur should follow or could follow to help their business. So it basically helps run the business in a simpler way. So the 6 key components, I'm just going to go over them briefly, and I'll probably get into one example. I'll deep dive into one example. But the first component is to have a vision. Very important to have a clear vision of what is it that your business is about, and not keep it in your head, but have it in writing, and have it in writing and something that you can present to your team members and anybody else that needs to support you in the business. If you don't have a clear vision, and if that vision is not written down on paper, it's going to be very challenging for you to sell your idea, not what you're selling, your products and services, but to sell the concept of your business to other people. So having a vision is very important to in order to communicate it to everyone, to get everybody on the same page in terms of the direction and your core values. That's very important. And this is one of the things that, again, when you start out as a business owner, entrepreneur, you may glance at this and think that you have an idea of your vision, but there's no clarity, and you're going in different, you don't have a clear direction, a clear path. So if you've been doing this for a while, this is important to go back to basics and try to clarify what the vision is. And in the book, in the chapter that he has a deep dive in vision, he goes into different strategies on how to accomplish that. There's a big handout available at the book as well. I downloaded it and printed it out. It's about 35 pages. And there's a lot of good information on the handouts, and activities, scorecards, questionnaire surveys, a lot of material in the handout that is it's complementary to the book, so you can download it when you get the book. So I'm following that this time around. So in terms of the vision, if you talk to everybody in your team and you ask them what the vision of your company is, you're probably going to get different answers, different results, different answers. So that's why it's important to have it written down, and everybody should know what the vision of the company is. And he has a tool in the handout that he talks about, the Vision Tracking Organizer, or VTO. So it's a good tool to use in order to put that vision together and get it, get organized. So in the vision, once you have a vision, there it defines what the marketing strategy is. You have like a 10-year target, a 3-year picture of the business, and a 1-year plan. And again, once you have that in place, it just helps you, know what direction you're going. And then later on, we're going to talk about how to evaluate it and measure the progress. So vision is number one, the key component number one. Key component number two is people. It's very important that you get the right people in the right seats, in the right positions. At the beginning, maybe you're by yourself. You still have to have the roles clearly defined. And he gets into what's called an accountability chart. And an accountability chart is basically, you have to break down what are the different roles that is needed in your business. Not the position, not the people, but the role. Okay. And at the beginning, it could be just yourself, and you could be doing multiple things, so you can have multiple roles. But it's very important to define what are these roles. And he gets into what's called an accountability chart. And there's also some tools that he has called a people score analyzer. Basically, you want, like you said, you want to make sure that you have the right, once you have your accountability chart, you want to put people in their respective seat or position. But you want to make sure that you put the right person for the right job. Not everybody has the same skill set, the same skill set. And so that's why, certain roles require certain skills. So you want to make sure that you get the right people, because that could hamper the growth of the business, but it can also hamper the growth of the individual in that position. And then you're going to have turnaround, because they're in a role where they're not really a good fit for that role. So you want to evaluate the people that you have and put them in the right place. And you have to help them by having this accountability chart in place. The third component is data. Now, data basically has to do with, you want to run your business following the numbers. You don't want to make decisions based on emotions. You want to be more objective, more analytical, have information, make data-driven decisions. It's very common, right? If you don't think about this, again, if you're just starting out and you're not really being strategic, you're going to be making decisions on how you feel one day or how you feel another day. You're going to see, maybe you're going to do a campaign, a marketing campaign, and you think it doesn't work, or somebody gives you an opinion, that doesn't work, try this, right? And you're bouncing around, but you're not following data. You're not measuring. You're not looking at the numbers. So if you don't track the data, then you're going to be making and running your business based on emotions and subjective opinions of people. So it's very important to have a way to track everything that you're doing. And one of the tools that he has there that he talks about is having a scorecard to measure and track everything. And then you're going to have regular meetings and discussions to track all the things that you're tracking and have a score. So the data is very important to monitor your business. The fourth component that he talks about is to have an issues list. You want to be transparent in your business and identify what are the issues and have a method to deal with the issues. Don't just glance at them. Don't just keep it in your head and think, oh yeah, I know about this, especially if you have other people working with you, right? But even if you're just by yourself, you still want to write them down, have them clearly defined, identified. And because next thing you know is there's a lot of issues that are compounding and getting, overlapping and building up. And it's going to be overwhelming if that happens, or when that happens, not if, when that happens. So you want to have a method to identify issues. And he gets into a lot of strategies in the book when he deep dives in the issues component. So you want to take time to address these problems. Okay. Nothing to hide, just bring it up and then address them. And there's ways to do that. The fifth component is process. Now, process is basically your processes, your rules, your methods, your way of doing business. You cannot do business, do everything that you're doing in your business. You have to have a way to replicate it, to hand it off to somebody else and have them follow the same process that you're doing, because that way they can duplicate and they can duplicate the work without making it unique, right? Having your own business process. So a good example when I talk about this is that when McDonald's, like for example, if I talk about McDonald's is a company that it thrives because of the processes that they have in place and they've been following. When you go to McDonald's, you know exactly how their burgers are going to be cooked, because they have a process of how to cook the burger, how to put the fries, how to put the pickles. Everything is a process. It's not a random occurrence. So if they change, like one person goes to the kitchen and starts cooking a hamburger, they're going to do the exact same way that the other person did it, because they're following a process. So you want to have the same type of concept in the business, that you want to have a process in place for everything that you're doing. So that's the process. That's component number 5. And that's going to help you, right? When you want to delegate something that you want somebody else to do, if you have this process in place, then it's going to be easier for that other person to pick up whatever task that you want them to do. So the 6th component is called traction. And traction is basically where you're keeping track of everything that you are doing in the business. And there's this concept called rocks, where basically you're saying that you want to set rocks so everyone knows what they're accountable for. So when you're identifying and you're planning things that you're going to be doing, you prioritize the things that you're planning on doing, and you set them apart as rocks. So you have like quarterly rocks, and then you have meetings to follow up on what exactly are the rocks that everybody is working on. So that's just a concept, an idea, word to use to identify what are the top key things that you're working on. He gets into a strategy called level 10 meeting agenda, and I'm going to dive deep a little bit on this one. One way to have a meeting that he suggests, like I said, is called level 10 meeting agenda. And basically, when companies or people have a meeting, you want to have an agenda set in place. And this is the suggestion or the idea that he sets for the meetings. He basically says, always start the meeting on time. That's a given. Start the meeting on time, end it on time. And it's going to be a 90-minute meeting. This is a high-level meeting. The first components or agenda items, the first one is having a scorecard. You're going to spend about 5 minutes on a scorecard. So we talked about having a scorecard for every item that you're working on. They're going to have a score. You're going to have it on the scorecard, and you're going to measure where are you in that item that you're doing. So you're scoring it. So you spend 5 minutes on your scorecard. Then you're going to spend another 5 minutes on your rock review. I talk about having a rock and working on rocks. So in this meeting, you're going to spend 5 minutes talking about your rocks and see where you are in the process of completing the task that you set forth to work on that rock. The next 5 minutes, so this is now you're going into 15 minutes, is customer or employee headlines, what he calls. These are things that require a discussion. Things that are happening either internally or externally. So you have 5-minute discussions on that, and that's those three things are what's called the reporting mode. Now, the first item in the agenda, which I actually skipped, is actually you want to start the meeting with good news. So the first 5 minutes you start talking about, it's like a transition point where before the meeting starts, you're kind of like small talking, and then the meeting starts on time, and you start with good news. It could be personal or professional good news. So it's a transition. So, just spend the first 5 minutes there. So then after the good news, then comes the reporting, which are the three things that I just mentioned: scorecard, a rock review, and customer employee headlines that require discussion. When things are happening that are issues in these minutes that we talked about previously, if there's an issue, you're going to just pencil it or table it and put them on the side. And then you're not going to solve anything in these first 15 minutes. You're just identifying, you're just reporting. So if there's an issue, you just table it, and you're going to put them on your issues list that you're going to talk about later in the meeting. So the scorecard, the rock review, the customer headlines, you're just talking about it. If there's an issue, you table it and you put it on the issues list. Okay. So then the next item in the agenda is the next 5 minutes is you go over the to-do list. So the to-do list is a review of last week's to-dos. So every week you're going to have like a 7-day task list or to-do items that you're going to work on. And so here in the 5 minutes, you're going to go over them. So every week, the goal is to have a 90% of the items should be done each week. And then after the 5 minutes of to-do list, you're going to go on to the issues list. Okay. So this is the longer part of the meeting, where after you talked about everything before, you're going to now dive deep into the issues that were identified. And there's a process he talks about called IDS, or identify, discuss, and solve. So here we're going to talk about solving some of these issues that we talked about, that we identified previously. So we identify the issues, and before we dive into them, we prioritize the issues. So we prioritize the issues, we discuss them, and then we try to solve them. And that we spend at least 60 minutes. Okay. So a good hour goes on the issues list, And then at the end, we finish off with 5 minutes. It's the conclusion. And that conclusion, we recap the to do list, right? Because we're going to have a to do list for next week. We're going to have a recap of what we need to communicate to the organization. And then you want to, excuse me, you want to rate the meeting from 1 to 10. And if it's not an 8, at least an 8, then you discuss why. Okay. And that's how you kind of improve the process. So that's the level 10 meeting and that he goes into. It's a good, I think, good method to have a good productive meeting. And I suggest we take a look at that. I'm going to go over it on my notes here again and make sure that I can follow something similar to that, because I think it's very clear and concise, and it has I can see how this works, and it's proven to work. So that's all that I'm going to cover for today. So those are the 6 key components from traction. You got vision, you got people, issues, data, process, and traction. So that's the book Traction by Gino Wickman. Next week, that's book number 11 of the 52 book challenge. And next week, we will go over the book. What's the next book? The subtle art of not giving. And it kind of has an explicitive here, so I'm not even going to say it. So we're going to go over that book. If you check out the website, mindsetofsteel.com/book challenge. All right, that's all for now. Have a good evening. Thank you, and good